She inherited a roach-infested cottage while her affluent in-laws pocketed tens of millions. And they sneered at her openly during the memorial, branding her pitiful, until she uncovered the concealed safe buried beneath the splintered floorboards, containing something worth more than their entire fortune multiplied. Before we plunge into this astonishing tale, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow we've got a jaw-dropping story that will leave you utterly stunned. The downpour hammered the graveyard that November dawn, churning the newly dug soil into a mire that glued itself to every surface. Elise Donovan lingered at the graveside's rim. Her 7-year-old daughter Clara huddled against her, both drenched through their threadbare charcoal coats. The memorial had been curt, far too curt for a man who'd reached 78, but his kin had insisted on wrapping it up fast. Elise watched the casket of her father-in-law, Leonard Donovan, descend into the earth, her chest tight not with sorrow but with the dread of what lay ahead. She'd once cherished Leonard, not as a lover but as the father she'd never known. When she wed his son Marcus at 19, Leonard had escorted her down the aisle, her own parents lost to a crash when she was a girl. He'd been warm then, open-handed. But that was before the leukemia stole Marcus 4 years earlier, before the family bared their fangs, before she became a nuisance they couldn't quite evict. "Mommy, I'm freezing," Clara murmured, her tiny voice nearly lost beneath the rain's relentless tattoo on the ebony umbrellas nearby. Elise drew her tighter, wishing she could offer more than sodden comfort. The other attendees, Leonard's remaining offspring and their partners, formed a smug knot on the grave's far side. Their luxury loafers somehow gripped the muck, while Elise's scuffed pump sank deeper by the minute. Not one had acknowledged her since arrival. Not one had offered shelter beneath their canopies. The rite concluded with clockwork haste. As the sparse gathering scattered, a hand settled on Elise's shoulder. She turned to face Mr. Beaumont Carter, the family attorney, his gentle gaze enlarged behind rain-streaked lenses. "Mrs. Donovan," he said softly. "The reading is in 1 hour at my firm in Riverside Heights. Will you join us?" Before Elise could reply, a razor-edged voice sliced the deluge. "Of course she'll show. Wouldn't miss her shot at a windfall, would you, Elise?" Vivian Donovan, Leonard's eldest daughter and the clan's iron-willed queen since her mother's passing, stood beneath a monogrammed umbrella wielded by her husband, Gerald. Even in a graveyard, even in a storm, she looked runway-ready. Her obsidian suit pristine, diamonds flashing, her silver bob untouched by the gale. "Vivian," Mr. Beaumont cautioned, brow creasing. "Perhaps now isn't." "Oh, I insist it is," Vivian pressed on, her cruelty sugar-coated. "She's been counting the days, hasn't she? For years playing the tragic widow, parading that child like a bargaining chip." Elise's fingers dug into Clara's shoulders. "We need to leave," she whispered to her daughter. But Vivian wasn't done. "What I find truly pathetic," she advanced, Gerald shadowing with the umbrella, "is how you've been circling Dad these past months. Did you think your grocery runs and dustcloth theatrics fooled us? We saw right through the act." "I did care," Elise answered, voice level despite the quake in her ribs. "He was alone. You visited twice a year." Vivian's cheeks blazed. "How dare you?" "Ladies," Mr. Beaumont cut in, firm. 1 hour. My office. We'll resolve it there." The law office carried the scent of aged hide and citrus wax, a world away from the graveyard's loamy breath. Elise occupied a frayed seat near the rear. Clara curled in her lap, both still damp despite frantic towel dabbing in the restroom. The Donovan dynasty had commandeered the supple sofa and armchairs nearer Mr. Beaumont's desk. Vivian and Gerald, Leonard's son Nathan and his wife Lillian, and the youngest, Brooke, 35 and still coasting on her trust, eyeing Elise like lint on couture. "Now then, Mr. Beaumont," he began, sliding his bifocals into place. "This is the last will and testament of Leonard Elias Donovan, executed 6 months ago." 6 months. Nathan leaned forward, his surgeon's fingers laced white. "He rewrote it 6 months ago. He did, the lawyer confirmed. He was explicit. Every stare in the room pinned Elise. She kept her eyes on Clara's damp curls, stroking them the way she once stroked Marcus's. To my daughter Vivian, Mr. Beaumont read, I bequeath my securities portfolio, presently valued at approximately $4.7 million, together with the residence in Palm Cove. Vivian dipped her chin, a cat-smug smile flickering. To my son Nathan, I leave my equity in the surgical center, valued at approximately $4.1 million, and the lodge at Silver Ridge. Nathan exhaled, sinking back. To my daughter Brooke, the sum of $2 million in trust under the existing terms, plus my library of signed first editions. Brooke flicked her gaze from her phone only long enough to register the news as routine. And finally, Mr. Beaumont hesitated, glancing at Elise with what might have been pity. To my daughter-in-law Elise Donovan, I leave the parcel at 714 Cedar Hollow Lane, including all buildings and contents thereon. The hush was absolute. Then Vivian barked a laugh like shattering crystal. Cedar Hollow Lane, the hovel. This is priceless, but Vivian rolled on. The joke's richer still, that dump's probably worth less than the demolition bill. You'll owe taxes on land you can't unload, upkeep on a ruin the county should have raised decades ago. Dad didn't give you an inheritance. He gave you an anchor. Lillian covered a giggle with manicured fingers. Poetic, really. She begged for scraps and got the plate. She crowed. What hovel? Gerald asked, brow creased. Dad's old fishing camp, Nathan supplied, smirk barely contained. That collapsing shack he picked up in the 70s. We used to say the Roaches paid rent to stay. No municipal hookups, Brooke chimed in, finally engaged. No real power, no plumbing, just a hand pump and a generator that wheezed its last during the Reagan years. Mr. Beaumont cleared his throat. The tract is roughly 5 acres with one structure. Mr. Donovan insisted Mrs. Donovan receive it. Of course he did, Vivian said, rising to smooth her skirt. He never lost his sense of comedy. So tell us, Elise, what will you do with your palatial estate? Charge admission? Asterisk, step right up, see how the other half starves, asterisk. Vivian, please, the lawyer murmured. Oh, I'm just warming up. She planted herself in front of Elise, forcing eye contact. You thought you were brilliant, didn't you? Weekly pilgrimages, toting the kid like a prop. Did you honestly expect a real bequest? You were never blood. Just the girl Marcus got pregnant in freshman year. Enough, Elise said, soft but iron. Bet she can't even afford the pole drop, Brooke added gleefully. What's the quote for trenching power 2 miles? 40 grand? 50. Elise rose, settling Clara on her hip. The child had gone still, the way small creatures freeze when predators circle. Thank you, Mr. Beaumont, Elise said, voice steady. Anything to sign? The lawyer fumbled papers, flustered. Yes, here. And these. He slid over a thick manila envelope that clinked with weight, keys and something denser. Elise pocketed it without inspection. Keys to the castle, Gerald quipped, sparking another ripple of laughter. Mommy, Clara whispered. Are they being mean? The child's clear question made even Mr. Beaumont shuffle his folders, cheeks reddening, but the Donovans only grinned wider. Out of the mouths of babes, Vivian purred. Yes, darling, we're being mean because some people forget their station. Your mother certainly did. Elise signed where the pen pointed, her hand steady though her lungs burned. When the last page was done, she lifted Clara and walked toward the exit. Elise, Vivian called, syrupy. Do let us know if you need supplies. We might dig up an old pup tent that only leaks in 3 places. Wouldn't want little Clara bunking in that death trap. Elise paused at the threshold, back straight, eyes forward. We'll manage. Of course you will, Brooke trilled. The raccoons probably have a lease by now. They'll show you the ropes. The door shut on their bright, brittle laughter. The drive to Cedar Hollow Lane took 50 minutes from Riverside Heights. The final stretch was a washboard track that became gumbo in the rain. Elise's battered Toyota Corolla lurched through the ruts. Clara sat quiet in back, watching the pines close in like a tunnel. They'd swung by their old studio, former studio, rent due in 4 days, to cram their life into the trunk and rear seat. It all fit with space left over. "Is it an adventure?" Clara asked as they rattled past a leaning mailbox stenciled 714. "Something like that," Elise said, stomach knotting as the cottage appeared. Photos hadn't prepared her. The place sagged like a weary animal, roof bowed, windows blind with plywood or gaping like pulled teeth. Clapboards had bleached to corpse gray, streaked green with lichen. The porch listed hard starboard, posts gnawed to lace by rot and insects. Elise parked in a weed-choked clearing and killed the engine. Silence rushed in, broken only by rain drumming the roof and Clara's soft breath. "It looks haunted," Clara said. Elise turned, summoning a smile. "You're right. But sometimes the spookiest houses just need someone brave enough to love them. Like the dragon in your bedtime book who only wanted tea and company." Clara weighed this. "Can we be the cottage's friends?" "We can try." They dashed through the downpour. Elise tested each porch plank before trusting it. The door hung drunkenly, the fourth key scraped home. The hinges screamed like the house itself protesting. Inside, the smell rolled over them, damp rot, mold, and a dark alone note. Elise clicked the useless wall switch, then fetched the flashlight from the car. Its cone sliced the gloom, sheet-draped furniture like huddled ghosts, dust motes swirling, webs thick as curtains. Yet beneath the ruin she glimpsed sturdy bones, tongue and groove walls, a riverstone hearth, built-in shelves waiting for books that had long vanished. The place was larger than the exterior promised, one open living dining area, a galley kitchen with avocado appliances, 2 small bedrooms, a bath with porcelain the color of old teeth. Everything wore a pelt of dust and surrender. "Stay close," Elise said. Clara's fingers tightened around hers as the beam swept the decay. Yet the frame held firm, an oddity for a shell that looked one gust from oblivion. In the larger bedroom, Elise stopped short. Unlike the rest, this chamber bore marks of recent life. The bed wore a quilt thick with dust but not decay. A lamp flanked a paperback, new spine, bestseller sticker still clinging. On the dresser stood a framed shot of Leonard Donovan, maybe a decade younger, grinning wide. "Grandpa," Clara breathed, though she'd met him only a handful of times. Elise lifted the photo, thumbing grime from the glass. A folded slip was wedged behind the frame. She unfolded it, recognizing Leonard's trembling script. "Elise, if you're reading this, you came anyway, despite the jeers I'm sure my children hurled. Good. They skim surfaces, always have. Dig past them. The true legacy isn't obvious. Trust the skeleton of this place." "What's it say, Mommy?" Elise tucked the note beside the keys. "Grandpa Leonard asked us to look after his secret hideout." They spent the last grey light sweeping cobwebs with a splintered broom while Clara tiptoed under orders to avoid anything sharp, pointy, or slimy, which was most things. The generator in the lean-to was a rusted corpse, but oil lamps and half-melted candles staved off the dark. They pitched camp in the master bedroom, the only room that felt less like a tomb. Sleeping bags atop the quilt, they listened to rain drum the shingles and the house sigh itself to sleep. "Mommy," Clara whispered into the black. "Why were they so mean?" Elise drew her close, inhaling shampoo and rain. "Sometimes people lash out when they're scared." "Of what?" "That we might have something they can't buy. We don't even have lights." Elise smiled unseen. "We have each other. That's rarer than diamonds. And Grandpa's magic house. Maybe it is magic, Elise said, humoring her. Scary wrapper, beautiful present. Tomorrow, daylight would demand plans, water, power, heat, school for Clara, proof that Vivian's barbs were wrong. The cottage was a money pit with teeth. Yet as Clara's breathing evened, questions gnawed. The bedroom preserved. The note. The envelope, still heavy in her coat. And the roof, sagging, yes, but not leaking. The walls creaked, but they didn't sway. The house felt less like a ruin and more like a creature playing possum. Elise fished out the envelope. 3 house keys, she'd expected that. But the rest, smaller, colder, intricate. Safe keys. Lockbox keys. The kind that guarded things people buried. Look deeper. Look for what others miss. Outside, the rain quit. Moonlight knifed through the lone unboarded pane, striping the floor silver. In that spill, Elise caught what she'd missed, a rectangle of floorboards by the hearth, paler, tighter jointed, the work of someone hiding more than repairing. She should wait for dawn. Should sleep. Should be sensible. Vivian's laugh rang in her ears instead. Elise slipped from Clara's warm curl, bare feet on cold plank, and knelt. A fingernail found the seam. A gentle tug lifted a panel like the lid of a music box. Darkness breathed up. Moonlight showed stone steps descending and, at the top riser, a brass keyhole sized for one of the small keys in her pocket. Heart hammering, she glanced at Clara, still asleep, then drew the key. Old, ornate, worn satin smooth. The plate around the lock was wiped clean, oiled. The key turned with a soft snick. Nothing. Then a pneumatic sigh, and the whole panel sank on hidden hydraulics. Battery LEDs blinked awake along the steps, cool blue. Elise descended. Stone cool undersoles, 15 feet down to a corridor of poured concrete and polished granite, vault grade, not backwards. More LEDs guided her to a steel door thick as a bank. A glowing keypad. A card taped beneath, Leonard's scrawl, the year we lost Marcus. 2020. Fingers shaking, she keyed it. The door glided inward on silent hinges. Lights rose in stages, revealing a cavern triple the cottage's footprint. Filing cabinets marched one wall, glass cases another. A broad desk anchored the center like a throne. Beyond the glass partition, aisles of steel shelving stretching into shadow, safe-to-deposit boxes, canvases in nitrogen cases, cloth-draped shapes that promised more. Donovan Family Trust, estimated 1948, read the discreet plaque. The land hadn't been bought in the 70s. It had been inherited. On the desk sat a fat craft envelope, Elise Donovan inked in Leonard's unsteady hand. Beside it, a sleek laptop pulsed awake, power lead steady. Elise dropped into the chair, leather creaking like an old friend, and tore the envelope. My dear Elise, if you're here, my children live down to every fear I had. Cruel, shallow, dazzled by shine. They saw the cottage, laughed, didn't they? Perfect. They just handed their birthright to the only soul who earned it. Tez blurred the ink. She blinked hard and read on. Grandfather founded this archive in 1948, fresh from the Monuments Men, recovering art the Nazis looted. Home again, he bought pieces legally from families who needed bread more than beauty. He built this bunker to guard history from profiteers. I inherited it, grew it for 6 decades. Appraisers peg it at $220 million, I believe closer to $500 million. The number punched the air from her lungs. She gripped the desk. The laptop holds the catalogue, every item authenticated. Cabinets contain provenance, bills of sale, insurance riders, discreet brokers if you ever sell. I hope you don't, at least not everything. This is 3 generations of stewardship, but mostly it is trust. My trust in you. The trust owned the land, the cottage, all structures and contents. Ironclad, drafted by attorneys who guarded dynasties. The visible wealth, cash, houses, shares, went to the children who prized it. They never asked about the cottage, never wondered why Leonard vanished here for weeks. They never looked. You did. Every visit you asked for stories, grandfather's war, the paintings, the people behind the objects. You saw worth in rust and wrinkles. You saw me. Elise rose, knees wobbling, and laid her palm on the glass. Her reflection, muddy sneakers, tangled hair, eyes swollen, looked alien against the gallery beyond. A Klimt shimmered under soft lights, casual as a postcard. She drifted aisle to aisle for hours, laptop open like a hymnal. Picasso, O'Keeffe, ancient Torah scrolls, Ming porcelain, Feyberge eggs, a Shakespeare first folio. One case held jewels, a Habsburg emerald parure, a Romanov sapphire suite. Then the small annex, Leonard's private shelf. For Elise, Paris, May 2021. Clara will adore this, Kyoto, July 2022. A child-sized Tiffany music box, a Degas pastel of a ballerina. He'd shopped for them while his own children sent birthday cards late. Dawn bled gold through the trees when she climbed the stone stairs. Clara slept on, cocooned in nylon, breath fogging the chill. Elise leaned in the doorway, watching the rise and fall of that small chest, and tried to fit the sleeping child into a world where a rotting floorboard opened onto empires. Her phone, long forgotten in the chaos, vibrated itself across the desk. The Donovan family group chat, where they'd never bothered to remove her, was ablaze. Brooke had driven past Cedar Hollow Lane en route to her sound bath retreat. The photos were vicious, the cottage looking like a horror movie set, captions dripping venom. She's actually living in that biohazard. Bet she's back begging by Friday. Someone call CPS, this can't be legal for the kid. Elise deleted the thread without reply. Let them stew. The next week became ritual. By day she scrubbed, patched, and coaxed the cottage toward habitability. The last of her savings bought a modest solar array, a water treatment kit for the well, a whisper-quiet generator for fridge and lights. To any passing drone or nosy sister, she was a broke widow clawing dignity from dirt. At night, after Clara's breathing slowed, Elise descended. She pored over the catalogue, cross-referenced auction records on the vault's encrypted satellite link, learned the quiet language of provenance and reserve prices. Leonard had been liquidating select pieces for decades, always private, always immaculate paperwork, feeding a constellation of trusts and brokerage accounts, all taxed, all legal. The cash pool alone eclipsed what the siblings had inherited. One midnight she found Leonard's journals. Leather-bound, decades deep. The recent pages cut deepest. March 18th. Vivian dropped by. Talked non-stop about the new villa in St. Barths. Never asked how the chemo went. I almost told her about the vault, just to see her face. She was live-streaming her latte art. I'm tired. April 4th. Elise and Clara came. Clara traced the old photos with her finger, asked who the soldier was, why the painting had a bullet hole. Elise listened like the stories were oxygen. They see. May 23rd. Attorneys signed off. The transfer is bulletproof. The kids will sue, of course. Let them choke on their millions. Elise gets the only thing that ever mattered. The final entry, 6 days before he died. I should feel worse, but blood isn't family. Elise is the daughter I waited for. She'll teach Clara how to look past rust. The collection is safe. Night 10, while photographing a 14th century illuminated Psalter, her phone rang. Vivian. 11:03 p.m. Elise let it ring twice, then answered. Elise. Vivian's voice was a wire pulled taut. We need to talk. It's late. Don't play coy. Brooks driven by 4 times. Solar panels. New generator. Well pump humming. You were 2 weeks from eviction. Where's the money? I had savings. Bull. A brittle laugh. You found something. Dad buried cash in the floorboards, didn't he? Jewelry? Tell me. Your father gave me exactly what he intended. Same as you. A pause. Elise could almost hear the calculus. We could partner. Whatever it is, split it. You can't want Clara in that dump. I'll front a house, good schools, the works. I already have a home. You're being irrational. I'm being a mother. Good night, Vivian. She killed the call on a strangled snarl. Morning brought a new sound, tires on gravel. Elise stepped onto the porch to find Nathan's silver BMW mired in the clearing. Leonard's son leaned against it, city shoes sinking in mud, face pinched. Elise, he tried, smile cracking. Just checking in. Seeing how you're settling. 2 weeks late, she said, flat. He flushed. Look, Dad's will was lopsided. You were Marcus's wife, family. You deserved more than, he waved at the cottage, this. Your father gave me exactly what he wanted me to have. That's the problem. He wasn't lucid. Pain meds, dementia. If you'd testify to that, we could break the will. Fair split. House, college fund for Clara. All you do is sign a statement. Dad seemed confused last few months. You want me to perjure myself for a payoff. Redistribution, he corrected. Leave. His mask slipped. You'll be buried when that roof caves. You'll have nothing. I have everything. He stormed back to the car, mud-freckling $1,000 loafers. As the BMW fishtailed away, Clara watched from the window. Why are they coming now, Mommy? They're scared we're okay. They weren't scared before. Exactly. That afternoon, while Clara colored a dragon purple, Elise descended. She chose one item, a small Matisse ink drawing, acquired 2021 for $925,000, now valued north of $1.8 million. She photographed it under Volt lights, pinged the Zurich dealer Leonard trusted. Offer in 40 minutes. Wire cleared in 3 days. She spent a sliver, new standing seam roof hidden under distressed shingles, fresh cedar siding weathered to match the old, grid-tied solar plus battery bank, plumbed water, septic, radiant floors. Workers raised brows at the brief, asterisk keep the outside ugly, make the inside bulletproof asterisk, but cash spoke. 2 weeks later the cottage looked unchanged from the lane, yet hummed with light, heat, and hot water. The Donovans lost their minds. Vivian left voicemails at 2 a.m. Nathan's attorneys fired cease-and-desist salvos claiming waste of estate assets. Brooke seeded town gossip, Elise is running a brothel, how else the cash? The sheriff who knocked found Clara teaching Elise chutes and ladders on a reclaimed oak floor, he left laughing. Encrypted appraisals rolled in. 3 paintings alone pushed the vault toward $350 million, maybe $400 if the market caught fire. Elise sold nothing more. She ring-fenced Clara's tuition, a 6-figure emergency fund, and left the rest untouched. Legacy, not liquidation. But the siblings circled tighter. Vivian's PI parked at the mailbox. Nathan subpoenaed utility records. Brooke live-streamed drone footage captioned poverty porn, until the feed cut when the drone snagged on a new, invisible guy wire. They still saw only the shack. It all came to a head one dusk when 3 car doors slammed in unison. Vivian, Nathan, and Brooke marched up the path like a tribunal. Elise met them on the porch. Clara was inside, engrossed in Moana on the new wall-mounted screen, volume high enough to drown adult voices. We know you found something, Vivian opened, no greeting. We want our cut. Your cut of what? Elise asked. Don't, Nathan snapped. The roof. The wiring. That Tesla you rolled into town in. Dad buried cash, bonds, something. It's estate property. We're his children. You got your inheritance, Elise said. Millions apiece. I got 5 acres and a cottage. A cottage you've pumped at least 200 grand into, Brooke sneered. Where's the money, Elise? Elise smiled, thinking of the $380 million still catalogued below. Leonard was right about you. Meaning? Vivian hissed. He said you only read headlines. Never footnotes. Never asked why he kept this place, why he disappeared here for weeks. Elise stepped backward toward the door. He left you what you worship, obvious money. He left me what I worship. Which is? Nathan ground out. Elise glanced through the window at Clara's silhouette, then at the 3 strangers tied to her daughter by DNA but nothing else. A home. A real one. Something your millions can't buy. She shut the door, locked it, and watched them bicker on the gravel, gesturing at the cottage, the cars, each other, until taillights vanished. Morning found Clara stacking blocks into a lopsided fortress on the new wool rug. Mommy, she said, tongue between teeth as she balanced a turret, is our house magic? Elise knelt, steadying the tower. Why do you say that? It was broken and lonely. Now it's warm and pretty. The mean people keep coming, but they can't make us leave. That's magic, right? Elise kissed the crown of her head, tasting shampoo and wonder. Yes, baby. Our house is definitely magic. Tuesday brought a courier in a pressed suit, pickup truck caked in mud. Elise signed while Clara spooned cereal. The envelope was thick, return address Morrison Krenke and Associates, the same firm the Donovans had been weaponizing for weeks. She read it 3 times before the word settled. Not a lawsuit. A summons to a meeting regarding newly discovered assets in the estate of Leonard Elias Donovan. Someone knew. That afternoon she dropped Clara with Mrs. Delgado, the neighbor who'd started baking them cookies just because. Then Elise drove to the city, pulse loud in her ears. Dealer betrayal? Drone footage? A careless wire transfer? The conference room gleamed. Vivian, Nathan, and Brooke sat on one side, their attorney smirking. Mr. Beaumont looked miserable. At the head, a silver-haired woman in a charcoal suit sharp enough to cut glass. Mrs. Donovan, she said, extending a hand like a diplomat. Victoria Morrison. I represent the Whitaker Foundation. Elise blinked. The Whitaker Foundation. Elise echoed. Please, sit. Victoria Morrison waited until chairs scraped and breaths were held. 3 weeks ago we received an anonymous packet, high-resolution photos of canvases, sculptures, manuscripts. Provenance watermarks matched the Donovan Trust, a name we knew. Leonard had been a silent seller to us for decades. But these pieces? Unknown. Museum grade. Shouldn't be in private hands. Vivian leaned in. What collection? Victoria ignored her, eyes on Elise. The note directed us to 714 Cedar Hollow Lane. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed a bunker, museum-grade, climate-controlled, 6,000 square feet. Conservative appraisal, $280 million. The room detonated. Impossible! Nathan shouted. That shack's a tear-down. Brooke shrieked. Actually, Mr. Beaumont interjected, voice small but steady, the will is explicit, the parcel at 714 Cedar Hollow Lane, including all structures and contents thereon. The vault is a structure. The art is content. It belongs to Mrs. Donovan. Brooke began to cry, ugly, furious sobs. She tricked him. Careful, Victoria said, ice calm. We've reviewed visitor logs, phone records, security footage. Mrs. Donovan averaged 3 visits weekly. You 3 managed for total in 5 years. Vivian went corpse pale. We were busy. St. Barth's, Gstad, the Met Gala, Victoria listed. Pressing. She turned to Elise. The foundation preserves cultural heritage. We offer $340 million for the collection, vault intact. We'll convert the site into the Donovan Museum, you retain surface title, receive a 7-figure annual stipend as lifetime director, and the art stays exactly where Leonard built it. Elise couldn't breathe. $340 million. A museum. Legacy. No. Vivian slammed the table. We're his children. Children who mocked a widow sleeping on plywood, Victoria said. Children who called a 7-year-old's home a death trap. Elise found her voice. How did you really know? Victoria's smile was soft steel. Leonard told us to watch. If his children contested or harassed you, we were to step in. She slid a letter across the table and read. They'll come for her once they smell blood. Protect Rachel. She's the only one who ever listened. The next 2 hours dissolved into legalese and collapse. The Donovan's attorney flailed, undue influence, incapacity, fraud, but every clause was armored, every provenance airtight, every notary seal pristine. When the gavel of reality finally fell, the siblings sat hollow-eyed amid shredded arguments. Victoria gathered her briefcase. Mrs. Donovan, the courier will deliver closing papers tomorrow. Take your time reviewing. The vault, and your peace, are yours. Elise stood, legs steady for the first time in months. Outside the window, the city lights glittered like a new constellation. She thought of Clara's block castle, of Leonard's journals, of a little girl who believed broken houses could be magic. She smiled. They were. He planned this for decades, Mr. Beaumont said, voice soft but final. The will evolved over 10 revisions. The trust is layered like an onion, each shell airtight. There's no crack to pry. But there has to be, Nathan pleaded. Some angle. Angle to prove what? Victoria cut in. That Leonard was lucid? He was. That Mrs. Donovan coerced him? She didn't. That you deserve more than the $12 million you each received. You don't. Vivian turned to Elise, eyes wide with something raw. Please. We're * family star. The cousins need. Don't. Elise's voice was quiet steel. You made it clear I was never family. You photographed Clara's home and captioned it poverty porn. You called CPS. You started rumors I was a drug mule. And now you want kinship. We didn't know, Brooke whispered. You didn't care, Elise said. There's the difference. She rose. I need time to consider the offer. Victoria slid a card across the table. Our firm will intercept any further enthusiasm from interested parties. Elise walked out, spine straight, leaving the Donovans to their wreckage. In the elevator, her knees buckled. She gripped the rail until the car dinged. $340 million. Wings, Leonard had written. She didn't know how to fly. She collected Clara on autopilot, answered her daughter's chatter with half smiles. That night, after Clara slept, Elise descended one last time. The vault no longer felt like treasure, it felt like gravity. She opened Leonard's journal to a final entry, ink still crisp. I know this will floor her. Elise was taught she's small. But she's the only one who ever saw the whole sky. The collection isn't a weight, it's lift. I just hope she learns the wind. She cried, ugly, healing sobs, for Leonard who saw her, for Marcus gone too soon, for Clara who deserved castles, for the woman who'd forgotten her own wingspan. Morning exploded. Reporters camped the new gate. Phones melted. The Donovans gave tear-streaked interviews, elder abuse. Stolen legacy. But Riverside Heights closed ranks. Mrs. Delgado told CNN Elise once shoveled her walk at 3 a.m. after a stroke. The garage owner recounted how Elise rebuilt a teen mom's transmission for parts alone. Sheriff Ramirez grumbled to cameras, "She fixed my daughter's radiator at midnight and refused a dime," said single moms stick together. Victoria's teen counterpunched, visitor logs, Leonard's letters, and the kill shot, a video dated 4 weeks before death. Elise watched alone, lights low, Clara's laughter drifting from the yard. Leonard faced the lens, frail but fierce. "Let me be crystal, I am sound. No coercion. Elise Donovan showed me love my own children rationed like crumbs. She came for stories, not secrets. The vault is hers because she's the only one who ever looked past the rust." He leaned closer, eyes bright. "To my children, you got what you chased, money. Elise gets what you ignored, meaning. Let her fly." The screen cut to black. Elise exhaled, tears drying into resolve. She stepped outside. Clara waved from the tire swing. Reporters shouted questions. Elise smiled, not the small, careful smile of a woman who'd once apologized for existing, but the open, unafraid smile of someone who'd just remembered she had wings. She took Clara's hand. Together, they walked back into the magic house. "She brought my granddaughter to see me. Taught her to value stories over stuff. I'm leaving Elise the collection, not as a burden, but as a blessing. And to my children, who I know will watch this someday, I loved you. I always loved you. But you loved my money more than me. Elise loved me. That's the difference." The clip ricocheted across every screen in the country. Public opinion snapped like a whip. Donovan Medical Group bled patients. Vivian's Country Club membership was quietly revoked. Brooks Trust, quietly seeded with a morality clause decades earlier, locked tight, pending character review. Elise felt no triumph, only the dizzying weight of altitude. 2 weeks later she called Victoria. "I'll accept. But on terms." She listed them like a quiet manifesto. Free admission for Riverside Heights residents. Art restoration apprenticeships for foster kids. The Marcus Donovan Scholarship, full ride for single parents chasing degrees. She keeps the small pieces Leonard earmarked for her and Clara, the Degas ballerina sketch, the Tiffany music box, the Monet water lily study he'd bought because it reminded me of Clara's eyes. "Done," Victoria said. "Anything else?" "That's the price of the wings." Spring arrived with cranes and glass. The cottage stayed, cozy, perfect, while the vault bloomed into galleries. Grand opening, 6 months to the day from the muddy funeral. Winter brought softer knocks. First, Vivian, coat hanging loose, eyes hollow. "I know you hate me," she began. "I came to apologize." Elise listened on the porch, breath fogging. "I lost my father twice," Vivian said. "Once to anger, once to death. I never grieved the man who taught me to parallel park." She offered a faded Polaroid, young Leonard pushing Vivian and Marcus on swings, all three mid-laugh. "For Clara," she whispered. "So she knows the grandpa we forgot how to be." Nathan came next, carrying a showbox of yellowed clinic notes, Leonard's first stethoscope sketches. Brooke arrived last, clutching a child's watercolor, "To Daddy, love B." Elise accepted every relic. Forgiveness was a longer road, but memory was wide enough for all. She hung the Polaroid above the cottage fireplace, between the Degas and the Monet. Every morning Clara asked the photo, "Tell me about the swing day, Grandpa." And somewhere, Leonard smiled. This your story, reimagined with every name and place changed, yet every beat and theme preserved. The grand opening rose like a promise kept. First warm breath of spring, sky scrubbed clean. Cars spilled across the new lot and down the lane. Some came for the Donovan collection, most came for the woman who turned EBT cards into eternity while keeping her soul. Elise Donovan stood at the gate in a simple linen dress the color of dusk. Clara bounced beside her in sky blue, handing out programs like a pint-sized descent. The museum gleamed, Leonard's vision made visible, every canvas, every sculpture captioned with its odyssey, its meaning beyond price tags. "Mommy," Clara whispered during a lull, "are you happy?" Elise knelt, tracing the freckles across her daughter's nose. Funerals, food banks, eviction notices, the laughter in the cemetery, every scar flashed past. Then Leonard's note, "Wings." "Yes, baby," she said, and the words rang true. "I'm happy." At sunset, after the last visitor left, Elise walked the galleries alone. She stopped beneath Leonard's portrait, painted from the final photo she'd snapped of him among his roses. "Thank you," she told the canvas. "For the wings." That night, in the cottage that had once been a punchline, Elise tucked Clara in beneath 3 modest paintings Leonard had chosen for a little girl he barely knew, a Chagall dreamer, a Cassout mother and child, a tiny Renoir garden. "Tell me the magic house story again," Clara murmured. So Elise told it, how a penniless widow inherited a collapsing cabin, how the mighty mocked her, how one old man saw farther than blood. How treasure isn't always gold, sometimes it's trust. Sometimes it's love that refuses to measure worth in dollars. "And the mean cousins?" Clara asked, ritual question. "They learned," Elise answered, ritual reply, "that family is what you show up for, not what you're born to. And that the ugliest shell can hide the rarest pearl if someone dares to look." Clara slept. Elise stood at the window. Museum lights glowed soft across the lawn, $340 million in art, yet the number felt beside the point. Validation, not valuation. Her phone buzzed. Victoria Morrison, day 1 attendance shattered records. "You built a cathedral, Elise." She had, not just of art, but of second glances, of single moms, of every soul told they were the shack instead of the vault. Next morning brought pancakes shaped like dragonflies and real maple syrup. Clara chattered, "Mrs. Delgado says I can plant pink roses by Grandpa's plaque. He told me Grandma Ruth grew them and they smelled like heaven." Elise blinked. She hadn't known. A rose garden was suddenly urgent. The school bus still came, same route, same driver, because some things stay sacred. As it pulled away, Elise's phone rang. "Mrs. Donovan, Jonathan Petty, Metropolitan Museum of Art. We're curating an exhibit on private troves turned public legacies. We'd be honored to borrow pieces and to have you keynote our gala." A year ago she'd have stammered, assumed wrong number. Now, email the proposal. "I'll review." She laughed, full, startled, free, at the absurdity. The Met wanted the waitress, the widow, the woman they'd called that girl Marcus knocked up. She'd accept, not for glamour, but for the exhausted mom in the back row who needed to hear, "Your worth isn't their punchline. Look deeper. The mansion is already yours, someone just hid the key in the shack." She grabbed the keys to the safe, quiet Subaru, bought for airbags, not image, and headed out, scholarship meeting, school tour, interview with a journalist profiling women who rewrite impossible. At the door she paused. Sunlight struck the cottage, ordinary clapboards, extraordinary heart. Vivian had sneered, "You'll regret this forever." Elise smiled. Forever, yes. But not regret. Every overlooked woman carries a vault. Some just need the right key. Elise drove into the bright Riverside Heights morning, no longer the widow of the worthless shack, but the guardian of wonders, the keeper of wings. The greatest inheritance isn't what you're handed. It's what you choose to become when the world bets against you. The end. Up next, two more defiant, dazzling stories of the underestimated rising. Click through, and if you believe broken things can hold galaxies, subscribe.